Welcome to This Week in Location-Based Marketing, the most trusted podcast dedicated to the new business of location. It is time for This Week in Location-Based Marketing. This is episode number 156. We're recording this live early in the morning on November 16th, 2013. That's a Saturday morning. And how's that, Asif?
There you go. We're 3 years old, Rob.
I should have done my Jimi Hendrix version of that, right?
We're past the terrible twos, Rob.
We're past the terrible twos, and they weren't so bad. I mean,
No,
really, quite frankly, terrible ones. If you go back to the early episodes, the ones were not so good. In comparison,
Ones were a bit rough.
They were a little bit rough, and but we are now cruising through. This is our third anniversary, 156 episodes down, and not only episodes down, Asif, but consecutive episodes. We haven't missed a single week.
It's unbelievable.
I don't know how. Like with your schedule, like one of the questions I was going to ask you is like, how many miles do you think you have flown in the 3 years since we started doing this?
Well, I mean, just on Star Alliance, which is mostly what I fly, which is here in Canada, and United and that whole group. I've probably done over 300,000. I mean, I do over 100 every year, so
100,000 a year. Yes.
Yeah.
So you have 300,000. Okay. So I've compiled some statistics here that kind of date us in what we're doing. And I just want to go through this. And for those of you who don't know the origin of this, it was a very funny thing. I remember the conversation we had when we met at a conference in New York City, right? And then we kept on meeting at conferences. And then I said, we started talking, and then I called you on the phone. We were having this conversation. I said, see if you need to do a podcast for the Location-Based Marketing Associate. You need to do this. And I said, do you remember that conversation? I said, I do. Listen, I'll help you get things going. Maybe I'll do the first 10 episodes. You'll find a co-host, and then you guys can run with it, and the LBMA can own it and go. And then 156.
And we're still here.
We're still together. It's just so funny. 156 episodes later. So, I've compiled a little bit of a few statistics. 300,000 miles is what you've flown in those 3 years. I think I've flown 8. Just in comparison, neither of us have had kids or new kids in those 3 years, which is great. Here, there. Do you have any idea what the most talked about company is? The one that we reference the most in 156 episodes, aside from Untether.tv and the LBMA. We go in spurts, but do you know what the most consistently mentioned company is in these 3 years? Take
Google?
it. Google's up there, second. And
right.
Facebook and Instagram.
How about eBay?
eBay and Amazon, fourth and fifth.
Fourth and fifth, okay.
Number one company, the one we love to hate.
Foursquare?
Foursquare, man. Foursquare, number one talked about company. Whether you like it or not, the currency is there, right?
Yeah.
And
I almost pulled them out again this week on a story that they were doing with the NFL, but because they're actually starting to make a little bit of money.
I know, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Some of the things that they're doing. I actually launched the app yesterday, trying to find some place to eat around here, and it didn't work. It was McDonald's and Harvey's, but that's something we were looking for. So, but Foursquare, now we've added another episode of that. I haven't gauged the sentiment of the Foursquare, so that's just one piece of it.
We'll talk about them next week because apparently, I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but apparently the latest version of the app that they put out this week now runs in the background as well. So you actually don't even have to launch the app, and it'll start surfacing stuff. That
is important.
So that is a big move, but we'll talk about that next week.
Well, there'll be another one, and maybe we should gauge the sentiment whether it's good or bad. So Foursquare, number one, we have had 104 guests on. So we've exposed our audience to 104 different beings. Some of them are duplicates, but not. We've just re-aired the interviews, but we've interviewed a couple of people twice, or have been on 2 or 3 times. And today's guest is actually Patrick Reynolds of Triton, and he's been on. This is the second time that we will have featured him, but 104 individual guests, which is very interesting. So bringing that news, we've surfaced 1,248 stories over those 3 years. We have covered 1,248 stories in the location-based marketing world, which is astounding. We have the average length of the episodes, 53 minutes. 53 minutes is the average length. That means 8,268 minutes of content have been published since our very first episode. And in those early discussions as well, we always talked about this, is that we were going to limit this to 20-minute episodes. Remember that conversation?
I do remember that.
Oh, my God. And then the world blew up on us. And it was quite literally, it's like, there's too much content.
People just want more.
Yeah. So maybe 53 minutes is too long or not, but our statistics, and there's a high engagement rate. We get some great feedback about it. So, and we don't say listen to all stories on all episodes, but it's great if you're hustling into the car or into work and you have a commute. You can commute to our voices. What's better than that? Come on.
Exactly.
And the last thing, this is a little funny thing, is that, I kind of went back and kind of looked at our hairstyles during the last 3 years. And this is the greatest statistic that you can take away from this entire episode, is that my hairstyle has changed 4 times. Asif, 0.
0.
Consistency, right?
There you go. 0.
It's gotten longer and shorter and longer and shorter. But 4 zip. That means... maybe I don't have the confidence. I have to change my look every once in a while. But 4 hairstyles for me. Asif has had the same one throughout. It's consistency. I love it.
It's yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little bit grayer though.
I'm not home enough to experiment, Rob.
That's right. Yeah, when you live in public like you do, there's consistency. You have to look like your picture, right?
Exactly.
Well, so those are the stats that we've had, and now viewership. Awesome. Viewership in the last year has almost doubled, which is considerable. We're now reaching about 40,000 people a month with this podcast in one way, shape, or form. And we really appreciate the fact that you guys are here. And for those of you long-term listeners, man, can't thank you enough. You're the reason we do this, and you're the reason we continue to do this. So just a little bit of humor at the beginning of the episode to kind of commemorate our 156th episode, which is 3 years old. 3 years. That's 156 consecutive weeks. My goodness. My goodness. So big story, big show today, as usual. We've got our Mobile Minute, our app of the week, which is a really cool app that I've used a couple of times. 6 stories. Our guest, obviously, as I said, is Patrick Reynolds of Triton Digital. He's going to be talking about the impact that iTunes Radio is going to have on not only digital radio, but advertising dollars, and what next year is looking like when it comes to advertising in this whole digital radio space, which is emerging and very, 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 very important, I think, when it comes to advertising spend. And, of course, our resource of the week. But before we do that, what's going on with the Location-Based Marketing Association this coming week or this month? Anything you want to push?
Yeah, well, there was some good events this past week in Singapore in particular. The chapter there had a good event. I haven't had a chance to fully debrief with the team yet, but saw some photos and whatnot. Looked like a great crowd out and good Twitter traffic around it. So congrats to the team over there. Our next event is actually a new chapter we're opening up in Edinburgh over in Scotland, and that's going to be November the 28th. I will be over there for that. Some of the guys from our London team are coming over for that as well, and we're hoping to get the local brands out. The Tennants, Loggers, and the Royal Bank of Scotland, and some of those folks, and a bunch of startups, obviously, in the local community. What I didn't realize until I started digging into it is Edinburgh's kind of got on the academic side, the university side, there's a lot of mapping and GIS kind of programs, and so a lot of people coming from that aspect of location. So hopefully we can tap into that a little bit too, and some interesting digital agencies and so on that are quite active in that market. So excited about that. So that's November the 28th in the evening. We'll be there. And then this past week, I was in Dallas, I was in Atlanta, I was in New York. But got a chance to go to a social media club event in Dallas as a guest because I happened to be in town. My friend Chris Hirschberger hooked that up. He used to be at Michael's running digital for them, and the speaker at the event was Jay Baer, who's well known in social media circuit. Great speaker. He's phenomenal. I don't know if you know his background, Rob, but he before he started writing all these books and all this, he used to be a political campaign manager. So he comes from that background of running political campaigns and speech writing and all that kind of stuff. So he's just a phenomenal guy and speaker, and he wrote this book which is on the New York Times bestseller list called Utility. I don't know if you can see that there. Mm-hmm. So he was basically giving a presentation on that, and just phenomenal stuff. Like so many great examples, and he blew me away because like I think almost every other example he threw up there in terms of case study was Canadian. And I'm like, dude, like, are you ready to move up? And I mean, his kids play hockey and this, that, and he comes up here for hockey camps, and I mean, it's great. So, yeah, and I had a chance to sit down with him last year and do a little phone interview. So I didn't even know that I've got a page in this thing. So he pointed that out, gave me a little shout out. So thanks, Jay, I appreciate that. And you know, we aspire to be more like you. That's all I got. All right.
So, listen, you know, we're going to jump into the Mobile Minute here, and this is an episode that will not air for a couple of weeks on Untether.tv. You're getting a little bit of a preview just simply because you're listening to this or watching this. This is Chuck Martin, and we're talking about what is going on in the retail space, location and mobile retail space, and that's all we talk about really about on the show, and driving people to the store. So this is a Mobile Minute that focuses us on the fact that consumers are still heading towards the store. They're maybe doing their research online, they're doing their research in mobile, they're searching for product and inventory on mobile, but they're going into the store to buy. And what does this mean? And it's a really fascinating look, huge statistics. This is a great research study, and this is Chuck Martin with our Mobile Minute. Welcome back to another Mobile Minute. So, foot traffic in front of stores is down, but the percentage of people who go in is up, right?
Yeah, I just got some really interesting data from a company called Euclid that I've been aware of for some time. But they just analyzed 20 million shopping sessions, and they have these sensors in more than 700 shopping centers, malls, and stores around the U.S. And these sensors can sense basically when a phone is going by, so they can tell essentially if you look at the window display, and then if you go in, and if you go in, where do you go in the store? It's all anonymous, so that there are no privacy issues here. One of the interesting stats they found was what's called bounce rate, that they call. It's the number of shoppers who enter a store but leave within 5 minutes. And they found that has increased to 11%. Then it was 9% last year. So that means that a lot of stores have basically 5 minutes or fewer to essentially cause a transaction. The good news is the overall mean time spent for a person in a store is 22 minutes. That's also slightly shorter than last year. So people seem to be more focused. They're getting much more mobile savvy, if you will. So they're researching, they know what they're going, and they know what they're going for. Another new study came out from Social Romantic, found that mobile consumers are more than 4 times as likely to be influenced by targeted ads. It's 22% versus 5%. So the opportunity here is to target these people who are going into stores and not walking by, and providing information that's really useful and relevant. So that provides value for the customer.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges is getting somebody in the store. The second biggest challenge is getting somebody to spend money. So the retailers are capturing the consumer. They're just not capturing their dollars, right?
That's right. And we know from other research that the consumer in the store, the majority want to get information from their smartphone or tablet, not from the salesperson. So that's yet another challenge for the merchant.
That is our Mobile Minute. You can find those on Untether.tv. You can subscribe to them all, but that is a little bit of a preview of one that won't be available for the rest of the world until, maybe in a couple of weeks. But it's very, very, very relevant to what we're talking about here. And what does this mean to your business when you think about what Chuck just said and the statistics that he just put out there? So thanks, Chuck, for letting us use it. And thank you for watching that. And if you want to subscribe, just go to Untether.tv. All right, on with the show.
All right. So our app for this week is an app called Hudway, Hudway. And this is a navigation app, but it's it's all about heads-up display, as the name implies, Hudway. And so you can download this thing. It's free right now, turn-by-turn directions, but basically it's projecting this onto your windshield, kind of a la Google Glass, if you will. I think it's an interesting thing because it's about hands-free driving. It's about putting that content that you need when you need it in front of you. It's free, and I know you've played with this. I just downloaded it the other day, and haven't had a chance yet actually to use it in the car, which I'll do this weekend. Apparently, it works much better at night or in low visibility situations where you don't have a lot of sun and glare, that it makes it hard. But it seems utility-wise, it seems great.
Yes, and this is something that I think that when I read about this when they launched this a couple of weeks ago, it was something that fascinated me because heads-up display is always you can't do it in Google Glass. It's got to be on the screen, and this is maybe an interim step to that, and that's what was appealing to this. And so I tried to use it during the day, and it doesn't really work during the day very well because you need some kind of reflective screen, and the reflective screen is your windshield. So they say this is a really great thing at night or during inclement weather. So if you don't want to keep looking down at your GPS and you're trying to get someplace, this is great because all it does is show you the road ahead, the turns, the directions, and it reflects right off of your dash onto your screen. And with fog or snow or rain or night, it works very, very, very well. And that to me is the beginning of what's coming. So this is an interim step to actually having this built in, and it's free. And it's free. Yeah. And I think that this is something that I think that other mapping companies, I think Google will eventually add this to their Google Maps, and Apple do the same thing. Because if you're used to using Google Maps or Apple Maps, and you want to be able to stay within that confined environment, or you want to be able to use your existing mapping software, so it's a neat interim step to show that this technology can be done with your existing technology with your smartphone. So I like it, and I think you go to hudwayapp.com and you'll be able to see take a look at the video that we've been playing in the background here, and you'll be able to see that and be able to download it for free. Hudwayapp.com.
There you go.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Good app, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Into
the stories. Our first one, SportsBee App. I've always thought this. I was in London, and the Ottawa Senators were playing in I believe it was a playoff game, and this was a couple of years ago, and I thought, where in the hell am I going to see this guy? I got to watch this game, and there's time difference and all that kind of stuff that happens as a result of being away. And I was frantic. I was sending text messages to people. I said, where can I watch it? Where can I watch it? And somebody finally said, hey, listen, there's a Canadian sports bar that you should go to, and everybody watches hockey. There's all screens and hockey and Canadians everywhere, and it's crazy for hockey. And I ended up there watching the Ottawa Senators. And so now, flash forward a couple of years, and there's this app called SportsBee, which is literally finding the nearest sports bar that is going to be playing or is your team friendly, which is very important. So if you're a Yankees fan and you're in Boston, you don't walk in and they're playing each other and you're like, yeah, Yankees, because you're going to get the crap beat out of you. So this is a really neat, nifty app. Simple, right? I'm a Senators fan and I want to go find a bar that is going to be friendly to me, and boom, you're there. Simple.
It is. And first of all, I have to give credit for this one to my friend Lisa Bregman. Sent this over to me on Twitter last week, and she used to run social media at the LA Galaxy, and now she has a kind of a consulting firm, basically doing mobile and location and social stuff for sports in general. So she put this on my radar. So thanks, Lisa, for that. I think this is about simplicity, as you said, and it's great. And I think the data that they've compiled on all these bars. I mean, there's 10,000 sports bars across the U.S. that are logged in this thing, and it has it's not just here's the bar, and it's a New York Yankees bar. It's they'll tell you what TV packages the bar carries, subscribes to. They'll tell you the number of check-ins that are happening there in terms of traffic. So you can look at fan attendance, and is this is it 3 people that go there to watch the Yankees, or is there 300 people that go there to watch the Yankees?
Everybody's a closet Yankees fan. I know that.
Yeah. How many TVs do they have? All that kind of stuff is logged in this. As far as the data that they've collected on each of these bars. So I think this is great. And the sort of the laser focus on sports and connections to specific teams. And when you go in and check in and you use this, obviously you're saying you're a fan of this particular bar or this particular team as well. So you're feeding data into the system, which is cool. And it reminded me. So back the last World Cup, and I think we talked about this at the time. Nike did a campaign in New York. It was with a website. It wasn't an app, but it was a website you could go to,
yes.
And it had all the sports bars in New York mapped. And then you could drill down on this website, and you can see the flags of different nations, over the bar. So
very
you can know
similar.
That was a an Argentinian bar. And this one over here was, the German team or what have you. And so, again, if you were looking to go to a bar and cheer with people that, were cheering for the same team as you knew where to go. And so this is obviously much bigger in its scope, and it's all sports, and it's but I like it. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than being in a place that you shouldn't be cheering for the wrong team. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you can go to sportsbee.com. That's sports, the way it's normally spelled, with BEE.com. Sportsbee.com. You can download the application, and you will never have that embarrassing moment of cheering when you should be booing.
There you go.
That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. All right, our second story. This is a big one, but I love these both. And why don't you take this, Asif?
Yeah, so this is, in both cases, we're talking about our friends at Google here in some form or another. And the biggest part of this for me is this project that launched this week called Google Outside. This is in London, 160 locations, 100 bus shelters, and 60 transit stations, subway stations. And basically what they've done is they've taken digital screens, digital billboards, and they're adjusting the content on those screens in real time using Google Now technology. And so, in other words, if it's the example that they give here is that if it's inclement weather outside and it's raining and whatever, you may see an ad show up on that screen for a movie theater, an indoor activity that you could do. It might be weather information that they're showing on there. It might be stuff about local businesses. It might be that there's a Amber Alert going on in your neighborhood. But the idea is real-time contextual content being driven to a screen based on context and proximity and all those things coming together. Not unlike the experimental project that we did a couple of years ago at the LBMA with ads on the side of a bus when it was stationary and building real-time aggregate demographic profiles based on check-in data and then serving ads while the bus was still stationary. So
that seems more challenging if you ask me, man.
A
bus is more challenging than a bus shelter.
We didn't have Google Now. Google Now wasn't available 2.5 years ago when we were doing that stuff. So so absolutely love this. I mean, this is the future of advertising. This is what what we strive for and push for every day at the LBMA.
It's funny though that my hope is that they implement the Android version of Google Now, because even though that they've updated with the iPhone version, it still sucks ass. It's terrible. It's a terrible experience. So it surfaces stuff that is not relevant. It's like this morning I woke up and I say I'm going to launch Google Now, and it tells me that it's a 16-minute drive to my commute, and I'm like to work. And I'm like, it's Saturday. You should know this by now. It's Saturday. What are you doing putting that up? But I think that this is the information, whether it's static, like that it's on that street corner and the information is going to be displayed perfectly. I think that this is an amazing thing. Props to Google for doing this. Props for London for doing this. 160 digital screens on these bus shelters around London. I think that this really is leveraging this content and this technology to its greatest strength. And again, I just hope that it's the Android version of Google Now, not the iOS version of Google Now, or the features you get from the Android version, because iOS is still far behind. I love this story. I love
it's
this
awesome.
story. If I could hug it, I would.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll reach out to these guys and we'll get them on here to kind of talk about it, because it's so pertinent to the space right now.
Well, it's also because it's so important, because we're also going to be, more and more people are now, as the holiday season comes in, more and more people are now looking at saying, how do we bridge this digital, terrestrial divide? How do we get people looking on digital and moving into and quantifying it when they walk in the stores or when they walk in a tourist attraction or something to that extent? And I think that this is the beginning of this, and context and location and awareness of, not only location, but temperature and precipitation and the transient nature of humans, and putting all that together on these screens. It's a lot of pressure for it. But I think that as Chuck Martin is very famous in saying this. He said, and we all know this, is that there are so many steps to a purchase. There are so many steps to a destination. And each step, you can be distracted by something that comes along because of these devices. So if you can follow somebody, and I don't mean literally like in a bad way, but if you can help move people from their home out into the streets, and these screens can help them move into a place of business, if there's a continuum like that, I think that this is a great test to see if we can do this. So I think the ramifications of this are considerable, and that's why I love it so much. but maybe not
Yeah.
as much as playing an augmented reality game.
No, I think personally I like it more, but yeah. So the Niantic Labs, which is a spinoff from Google as well, and they have this game called Ingress. We've talked about this maybe a year ago when they launched this originally. So this is an AR game. It's about people in the real world battling people in an augmented world, and you're playing against people all over the world. So it's an interesting concept when they launched this, and now they're kind of looking to grow the audience a little bit by bringing this into airports. You have significant dwell time in airports. So this is JFK and LAX in particular. Apparently, 113 million passengers go through those two airports. Huge volume there, and so they're combining the game with digital signage again. So this is JCDecaux that owns the screens in these airports. So 70 screens in here. And basically just bringing that game to more people and getting you off, off your butt, which is the purpose of, why they built Ingress. They said it originally is like, this is about getting people, off the couch and into the real world, and by playing, a game in this context, and that is physical in nature. You have to go to these different places. You have to engage with people, and so they're bringing that to the airport environment. And I think it's interesting. I'm not sure. I mean, personally, as a business traveler, I don't have a lot of time to do this kind of thing, but a lot of people, I think they'll get some significant traction off of this.
I think so. And it's funny that these guys need, I mean, Niantic is a Google-owned company, and they need to be in front of more people, and this is on a platform. It's only on Android, and this is on a platform that has 1 billion users worldwide, and has trumped everybody in terms of operating systems and usage. And maybe it's the minimum requirement, so it limits the number of people that can play. But this is decidedly a North American game because of bandwidth constraints or consumption, and it's the fact that you need a more recent device because it's an augmented reality game. But 113 million people, and I don't know where the screens are positioned, but I just hope that what happens here is not, there's no confusion when it comes to this game. I mean, this is a spy game, and this is, worldwide participation. And maybe the airports, I think maybe they're not the best place to do something like this. Like, oh my God, there's a bomb! You don't want to hear that in an airport, right? And so... but you talk about traffic. There's a battle going on, and we know this in the airports. We've talked about this many times in the airports. It is probably the single busiest location for this kind of stuff, and the retailers are trying to figure out how to make money and drive people into it. And duty free are trying to drive people into their shops, and maybe this is a way that Google can take this information and then start pushing relevant information, relevant ads, relevant content to the people that are walking through. So. Two great stories. Google, I think they have something here. They have a future, these guys. I just don't know what they do, but they're doing everything.
I'll tell you, you just remind me of something at the end of the show. I can't talk about it on this show, unfortunately.
Okay.
Just for non-disclosure reasons. But remind me, Rob, at the end of this, I got to tell you something else about Google that you'll freak out about. But anyways,
making a note, and you see what happens here, guys. You won't know.
You won't know.
You won't know.
But you will. You will. It'll show up on an episode somewhere, like, maybe like 5 weeks from now.
Okay.
But anyway,
I love the teaser. That's a long teaser. Like, I just say, hey, wait till the end of the show.
Rob, our next story is we're over to Russia now.
We are. This is, I love fitness. Any kind of physical fitness is something that I absolutely get behind. I love applications that do this. I love, companies that use physical fitness in an interesting way. And here we are. You know that you could actually get a subway ticket for free if you can do 30 squats in 20 minutes, or 2 minutes, not 20 minutes. 30 squats in 2 minutes at one. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to butcher it, but at Vista Vachaya.
Nice.
Maybe that's it. Station. And if it's not, don't go to the one that I just said. Go to the actual one. You can do 30 squats. If you can do 30 squats in 2 minutes, and we're playing a video in the background here, and you can see this. If you're watching, you can see it. If you're listening, well, too bad. You got to watch the video. Where if you do them, you get a subway ticket. You get a token to go into the subway for free. And the whole idea here is that they're trying to promote health, good health, obviously, getting out, doing some physical activity. And they're also pushing the Olympics that are coming to Russia. And this is being run now till December 3rd. So you can go, if you can do 30 squats, try now, 30 squats in 2 minutes. And the whole system is great because they've laid out the system, they put it on, and they'll actually issue a ticket to the subway.
I saw one guy, and there's a few videos out around this thing, and I saw one guy doing the the sort of the traditional Russian dance thing, as his squat. So I thought that was kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, this is great branding, right? I mean, this is they're trying to drive the Sochi Olympics, and fitness and getting people, again, moving and doing things. Makes a lot of sense. And I think Visa is also a sponsor of this thing, helping underwrite some of the cost of this. So, it's just fun, right? And people of all ages. If you watch those videos, you'll see like it's everybody from every walk of life that you can think of in Russia that's at this station doing this.
Yep.
So
this is
branding.
Good. Yes, and it's not like doing a shot of vodka.
Yeah, that's totally different.
Yeah,
kind of fitness.
Because that's one that I could do, right? It's just do a shot of vodka. Can you put down a shot of vodka? How many shots can you do in 2 minutes? Maybe that's an option.
Right. There you go.
Wow. And if you can stand after that, you can get on the subway. All right, those are the first three stories. We're going to jump into our guest, Patrick Reynolds, right now of Triton Digital. Had a great opportunity. I love sitting with Patrick. Unfortunately, we always sit down in the middle of November. So he's a Movember guy. So he always likes to have me remind people that, listen, it's November, so he's growing a mustache for Movember. But I think that, in fact, he has a mustache all year round. He just uses that as an excuse because every episode that I've ever done with him, he's had a mustache. So this is Patrick Reynolds of Triton Digital. We're going to be talking about the impact that Apple Radio has had on the digital radio world, because you know that iTunes Radio has come out only in the U.S. now, but certainly to a waiting population. And then almost immediately after that, RDO got into the game with doing free radio stations as well, aside from their subscription place. And we know Songs, and we know a whole bunch of other guys that are doing this as well. So what has Apple's entrance into this world done for them? And then also, maybe how they're going to monetize. Location-based ads are obviously it, because they know your preferences beyond anybody else. Yep. They can match, for example, your music preferences now with your app purchases and your book purchases and your location, because it all gets fed into Apple's world. So the impact of that, and then also what 2014 looks like when it comes to budgeting for digital radio and location-based advertising and marketing through this medium. So here, Patrick Reynolds. This episode will be up in weeks from now. So again, man, you get these previews of what's coming down on Untether.tv before anybody else. Shh, don't tell anybody. Here is Patrick Reynolds. What has it been over the last 5 months that you've seen? Is this because, since the last time we talked, I mean, obviously there's been so much that has happened around or in the industry, but over the last 5 months, you've drawn that out. Is it because of iTunes Radio? What is it about the last 5 months that has really excited you guys?
Yeah, well, I think there have been two big events that have really caused a series of cascading events downstream. So the first is, Pandora, after their IPO, their numbers just keep building month upon month. And it's just no longer a fad. It is a phenomena, and it is just not going to go away. And no one in their right mind can look at their audience numbers and feel that there's anything other than a lot of growth ahead of them. So I think that's the one thing. There's a certified star in the space now, and that is Pandora in the U.S. And they're going to move throughout the world, I'm told, in the not-too-distant future.
Come to Canada, Pandora. My God.
Careful what you wish for. It just may happen. The second thing, of course, is Apple entering the market with iTunes Radio.
Yeah, and that had an impact?
Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
That had an impact, obviously?
Well, it's not so much, from my perspective, had a business impact yet. It hasn't, completely shaken the snow globe of the advertising landscape, as an example. But their self-reported audience numbers certainly give one pause. And the fact that, my date book has been really filled with people on the advertising side, on the marketing side, on the traditional publisher side, wanting to have a sit down and really thoroughly understand what is going on in the space in earnest for the first time, because Apple does not go into most of the spaces it enters in a small way. They go in as a disruptor, and everyone who's in that space needs to understand what the space is all about and what their options are.
It's funny because that is so true. Is that does it take somebody, like we were talking about this last year, and you were saying, like, is it going to take? We mentioned this. Is it going to take an Apple to do this? And you said it might be an Xbox thing because it's already in everybody's living room. Obviously it takes a company like that, not an upstart, but somebody with an established base and an established huge base that enters this market for people to take it seriously. Why is that when all the other signs, like Pandora's growth, showcase that this is an industry that they should be focused on or aware of?
Well, I think if you're you take a traditional mindset, the incumbents seldom see the insurgents as being a real challenge to them until their head is on a pike. Do you know what I mean? If you look back through history, it's generally too late when you realize, oh, that gate could fall.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. When you have a titan of industry that says, I'm going to get in, and not in a toe in the water kind of a way, but in a very significant kind of a way, when we have the Tim Cooks of the world speaking about iTunes Radio as a strategic imperative at their developer conference, when they talk about having a vision and designs on the car automotive dashboard, people need to take account of that. And when you just simply do the math, even if you are doing math at a 6th grade level, when you look at iTunes penetration and handset penetration, not just in the US, but on a global basis, when you look at the relationships that Apple has built over time through iTunes with various record labels and how that could be leveraged and parlayed into an iTunes radio offering, it's not going to be here today and gone tomorrow. This is in it for the long haul, and the world has changed.
You think from Apple's perspective, do they see revenue opportunities here? Like, I mean, they're offering iTunes Radio for free right now. You have any idea about how they want to turn this into revenue?
So I have had no direct conversations with them, but I have used the product along with X number of dozens of millions of other people in the US in the first couple of months.
It's crazy.
And there's advertising on it. So I don't see this as being a straight up subscription basis. It could have a freemium model, perhaps downstream, but right now it's free and it is being supported through advertising. And if you really connect some of the dots between what an Apple would know about you as a user of iTunes Radio based on things like your iTunes library and other data sets that Apple would have on you, they could give you highly tailored advertising that would be very appropriate and it would probably be very palatable for most people, as opposed to a spray and pray kind of attempt that other folks make. So I think advertising will be a big part of the equation for them. Just my guess. I have no direct knowledge of this, but I think that with that audience size, with the Apple panache and brand, there'll be a lot of advertisers that will want to do business with them.
So how important is digital? How important are these devices? How important is what iTunes are doing? How important is RDO moving into the radio stations as well that are free? Songs, how important, and of course Pandora, but how important are these guys? Like, is this real, or is this just like a tulip arms race for music, the equivalent?
Very astute reference. I like that. I think that this is unquestionably real, and I'll tell you, there's some fairly concrete proof points to this. So the ascension and rise of audio very closely mirrors the penetration and ascension and rise of mobile as an advertising platform. So the incredible rise of mobile has coincided in some ways with the decline of display. Unlike display and video to a large extent, the idea of audio is somewhat native or natural to a phone. People do a lot of listening with their ears with a phone, period, and an audio ad is an extension of that in certain ways. So it is highly relevant to the form factor that you have in terms of the mobile. The thing that makes the audio advertising unit robust and increasingly popular is that it is one of the precious few things, as you would know from your experience just walking on the earth here, that it is one of the only spotlight advertising channels still in existence. And by that, I mean only one audio ad ever plays at a time. You don't get this cacophony of sound that you get a cacophony of sight where things are flashing and beeping and pop-ups and all these things that you're just trying to, avoid and not be caught up in the web of. And advertising of audio is just one audio unit at a time. And it's usually a 15-second unit in a digital context. and it's oftentimes very targeted to you based on some behavioral stuff that the advertiser might know about you, and it's no big deal. It's a very, very fair quid pro quo for largely free or very inexpensive audio content, and most people will make that trade all day long.
That was Patrick Reynolds. He works for a company called Triton Digital, and you can find that episode sometime down the future on Untether.tv, but that is just for you right now. A little bit of a preview about what's going on in the radio world. I like Patrick. I like that he comes on, and I like the fact that he's got the patience to do this with me while he's growing a mustache in November. So, Patrick, thank you for letting us use it here. Thank you for being on Untether.tv, and look for that episode coming. You know the best way to do it? Subscribe to the mailing list. Subscribe to the mailing list. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it. All right. Back to the stories, man. Coca-Cola.
Yes. All right. So our next story, we go from Russia to Brazil now. And we're talking about Coca-Cola today and a project called Steps of Happiness. And so this was something designed by a university group, an advertising program called Escola Cuca. This is in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And again, this is like the fitness episode, Rob. This is, we go from doing 30 squats to trying to get people to take the stairs. And it's also in subway stations. So I don't know what it is about subway stations and getting people to be more active, but this seems to be the thing that's going on everywhere. And so they've set up this thing that, at the bottom of the staircase in the subway is a scale. And so you basically weigh yourself, and that's, you see that digitally represented. And then as you progress up the stairs, it's showing your weight declining as you're climbing these stairs. And it's about just drawing attention to, the need for people to get up and be more fit and be more active. So I love these things, and they're so, location centric in that this is about creating an experience in a particular place. From an advertising perspective, the branding that you can get off of these kinds of things is huge. I mean, if you remember, there was a similar project probably 2 years ago now. Volkswagen did a staircase in a subway platform that was a piano. If you remember, and you'd go up and down this thing and you could play songs by stepping on different steps. And I think the same kind of fun element that is about bringing attention to an issue of obesity and things like that makes a lot of sense. So I always I love when I see these campaigns. I think they're so relevant in today's society, and kudos to this advertising school for making this happen.
Yep, I love it. Again, anything that has to do with physical activity, I'm all for it. I'm the guy that runs up the stairs instead of taking the escalator or the elevator in the airports or the bus stations or subways, just because it's much faster. And anytime you can get the legs moving, get your heart rate going. Sound like a fitness guru, but this is literally what you should be doing. The only challenge is that who's going to stand on a mat and display their weight everywhere. It's only fit people that are going to do that. They say, hey, look at that. But I like the initiative and the fact that it is highly localized to that one spot. I really like this initiative. And even if you don't do it, it's going to make you think about doing it, right? You might not stand on the mat, but you're going to be guilted into walking up the stairs instead of taking the escalator. So I like it. Coca-Cola. They've got this push going on right now of trying to balance their image, and we talked about this a couple of times, but between the syrupy goodness of pure sugar, which is Coke, and maybe a few chemicals, which is Coke Zero, and it's not liquid. It's definitely not something that you should be consuming. I mean, if you're healthy, if you want to be healthy, but they're trying to balance that by doing these things, right? And I think that they have to. It's like pretty soon you're going to see these warnings on the Coke cans, like you do on cigarette packages, that listen, there are carcinogens in here that could cause cancer later on in life. And so I think they're trying to balance this with what's going on with the rest of it. So good for them, but I still can't put any of that stuff in my body. Anything that can corrode or erase rust on a nail, I'm not really interested in putting that into my stomach. That's smart, my thinking. Anyways, so story number 5.
All right, story number 5 is comes from a company called Proximity, which is a digital location agency out of Australia that we do a lot of work with at the LBMA. And they've teamed up with one of the biggest banks in Singapore called OCBC. to do some location-based geofencing around these bank branches, driving traffic, trying to drive new account signups, ATM finders, all that kind of stuff. It's just cool because, we talk so much on the show about retail and restaurants and Coca-Colas and all that kind of stuff, and we don't hear a lot about financial services industry, engaging with this stuff, but it's equally relevant, and the numbers prove it out. I mean, so these guys, they geofenced all these branches, every OCBC branch in Singapore, and they're huge. This bank is huge. I mean, when I go over there, it literally is. I see them like on every corner almost. One of these branches. I mean, it's crazy. And so they geofenced all these properties. What I liked about this, in addition, is they made the platform available on all mobile platforms. So it was iOS, it was Android, it was everything, right? So it didn't matter what you were on, and the results are really interesting. So there's a little case study video. We'll post that up on the LBMA site. But they got a 221% increase in online web traffic that they could attribute to this campaign. They got over an 8%, 8.1% click through on the location-based ad, like notifications in the mobile app, right? And then and they got significant traffic, that they could see into the actual branches. People signing up for new accounts. They didn't publish a number on how many new accounts. I guess that's but they actually got the traffic into the branch, which is cool. So just huge things you can do when you start to use these things, whether you're a retailer or a bank, it doesn't matter, right? And these guys are proving it.
And I think that this is just the beginning for banks, and we've talked about this in a couple of episodes of Mobile Minute with Chuck. Is that, listen, banks are now getting into the retail space. They're going to actually turn their applications into stores, and this is going to be fascinating to see because you use your banking app, you do, and quite literally you use it pretty much every day, at least once a week. You're in there, and now what's the next extension of this? So I really think that we're going to start to see a lot of innovation from banks now. Whether or not they should be a retail chain or sell you goods through their application is a completely different story, but they have to do something now that they've got the audience, and they do have the audience.
Yep.
I just wonder who the banks are going to exit to. Is Google going to buy all the banks? Google? Facebook? Hey, you've got all the traffic. Because it's like they sit back, both Facebook and Google look around, and they're like, okay, so who's cool now? So all of the young kids are leaving Facebook, so we're just going to go and do a $3 billion offer to Snapchat, right? And because that's where all the cool kids are hanging out.
And that's a whole other interesting story we should talk about at some point. Is I mean, the numbers are starting to come out now on the younger demographic exiting Facebook.
Yep.
What is that going to mean as they move towards these mobile location services like Snapchat? So yeah, we should leave that for another day. But
do a full expose on that.
Yeah,
it's big.
It is very big.
It is, because all that's left in Facebook are guys like my age, right? And ladies a little older, and it's maybe Facebook just morphs into the ultimate dating app. Anyway, we can talk about that.
Anyhow.
But proximity does location-based notifications and astounding numbers, which is pretty incredible.
And sometimes that first date really is best had over a coffee or tea, right, Rob?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. So while you're sitting there having that first date with somebody that you met on Facebook, maybe you'll decide to go to the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf Company, which is a small chain. And you know what? Sometimes you look down and you realize, hey, listen, I need to charge my device. So you've got free Wi-Fi now in these stores. Everywhere is free Wi-Fi, right? Which is to help Regency and help Flow and help keep you inside the store. Now, this little company, the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, are actually allowing you to charge your devices. They're setting up these little chargers on every table. Not every one of their franchises are doing this right now, but it's done. It's brought to you by Duracell. It's a partnership, and it's built into the table or built onto the table. It's all plugged in, and all you have to do is get a case for your iPhone or your device, and you put it down on it, and it does wireless charging. And this is their new way to keep you there a little bit longer. Is this new? Right?
Well, I mean, I think it's it's a bit of a novelty thing. Personally, I'm not sure this is going to keep me there longer. I mean, yes. I mean, does my battery die and do I need a charge? Sure. Am I going to seek out a Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf place to do that? Probably not. But if I'm already
There?
committed to this brand, and this is where I go,
Yep.
then absolutely I'll use it. I think what's for me when I came across this story, it was I think the utility of that is good, right? Charging, everybody needs that. Our phones are dying all the time. Makes sense, and they've got multiple ways to do this. They've got power mats in there from Duracell. They've got these rings built into the tables.
And
They've
hey,
got
you know what else they've got, Asif?
what?
They got these outlets. It's a new invention, right?
Yeah.
You take this thing
Yeah,
and you plug
exactly.
it into this thing in the wall, and power comes from it. And then you attach the other end into your phone, and they're everywhere. In every building. Did you know that? I'm just asking. Power
I've heard of it.
everywhere.
Um,
Yeah. Sorry.
what really hit me around this is I think it's okay. This is there's nothing unique about this thing. I think it's okay. I think interesting is if they had built into the app here that they've got around finding these locations and where these charging stations are.
Yep.
If they built in some sort of loyalty play,
Yes.
I think if they tie in a loyalty play to this, as in come in here and charge your phone, and for every joule of energy that goes into your phone, you get an ounce of coffee for free or whatever it is.
Give this away. This is too
you know,
good.
Right, I think that would be interesting, right? Because then all of a sudden it's you're actually tying it to the brand. You're tying it,
Yes.
to the experience of, hey, get an ounce of energy here and get an ounce of caffeine. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to be their marketing people, but
Asif, stop! You're giving away too much. Stop.
So
An ounce. Think about it, like an ounce of energy with an ounce of coffee.
yeah,
God, Asif. And that is exactly like you maybe every time you charge, like if you charge for like a minute or 10 minutes, you get something because
Yeah.
you're staying there longer, right? For your
Exactly.
next visit.
yeah. So
Oh.
that for me would make this really good, right? I mean, sure, the fact that I can go in and charge my phone is great. If I'm already committed to this brand, fine.
Yeah.
You're just making it a little bit better for me. You're improving the fan experience.
Right.
But tie this to some kind of loyalty play. Tie this to something where you can actually draw people in because you're doing something different, right? You're giving them energy and you're giving them caffeine. Like make it work.
Energy and energy. So just walk through that for a second, simply because I that is an amazing thing. So they have this app, as we've talked about, where you download the application and you can see where there is a coffee bean and tea leaf store that is participating in this. And if that's the only reason, it's not enough to actually drive you to download this application. But I love this loyalty play, boy oh boy. And so Scott Eisenstein, who's the global vice president of external relations at Duracell, says this, and this is kind of like the wrong approach. So Scott, if you're listening to this, and you probably aren't, but if you are listening to this, or Scott, get him to listen to this episode, because this line of thinking is not the way you should be thinking. The way that Asif is thinking is the way you should be thinking. This is his quote: "We are all frantic, going through the day trying to find our next charge. And there's nothing worse than watching your phone's battery die." That is the wrong approach, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, do we need power? Yes, but power is really to your point. There's a thing in the wall called an outlet, and typically we can find one.
That's what it's called. Yeah, it's an outlet. Yeah.
And there's cases out there, and Duracell makes great products around charging, no question about it, right? But tie this into some sort of brand loyalty experience, both for Duracell and for Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. Make that connection. Don't make this just about power.
See, this is why I love doing these episodes, man, because these ideas, you don't get them anywhere else. Holy cow. You're giving away too much. You're giving away too much. You're giving away too much.
Come on now.
I might actually edit that out simply because it's too good.
Oh, okay.
Never edit that kind of stuff out. Well, that is the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, which I have a hard time saying. It doesn't roll off my tongue, but the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf are bringing power charging stations to your table. And if you're thinking of doing this, Starbucks or anybody else, and all these other companies out there, think about what Asif said: an ounce of power for an ounce of power. or a kilowatt of power, or a watt of power for an ounce of power. Whatever it is, there's your marketing campaign. Just brilliant. Free.
Done.
Free.
Free. All right.
All right, those are the 6 stories. Our special guest, Patrick Reynolds from Triton Digital, as well as our app of the week was Hudway, Hudway, our mobile minute with Chuck Martin talking about consumers actually are going to go into stores more often than buying with their devices. And now it's time for our resource of the week. Well, this is what modern retail looks like, doesn't it, Asif?
It is. Great little infographic coming at us from the National Retail Foundation's Federation, sorry, not Foundation, Insight Center. And just some great numbers in here. It's got, it starts off with, retailers that rule Instagram. And it's got, Nike and Topshop and all these guys up there. It's got, showing the progression from 2000 to now in annual e-commerce sales in billions of dollars and how that's been growing like crazy. It's got Pinterest built into this thing and what's being bought on Pinterest. I mean, this crazy stuff. And all kinds of numbers in here on Twitter and which brands are ruling that. I don't know. What did you think of it?
Yeah, this is a great summary when it comes to the influence that these digital means have over the different categories of goods that are being sold. And I think that this is fascinating about what we look for and what we research and the devices or the platforms that we research them on. So this is the fascinating stuff, is that we all kind of migrate to the same things when we're doing research on it. I mean, I do all my electronic research online, and then I'll go and find the best price. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is the extension to, this is the biggest challenge. And this is what we were trying to get to with the mobile minute early on is, so now that people have done the research, you've got to get them into the store. And then when you get them into the store, you've heard those stats from that mobile minute, which was, listen, people are spending on average 22 minutes in the store, but it's in decline. And people are being drawn into the stores, but they're leaving, some of them are leaving after 5 minutes. So they're going in, they're not finding what they're looking for, and then they're coming out of it. And so they've done their research, they're educated, they're in the store. Now you've got to get them to buy, right? And I think that that's the key thing that it's closing that loop on this. And this just shows you the impact that retail is the impact that mobile, digital, and location are having on retail. It's amazing.
Yeah. Awesome.
So this will be up. This will be up on the lbma.com/research.
It will.
And it'll also obviously be a link on Unteller.tv if you're watching it from here as well. Well, that's the show. Now, you can tune out right now if you like. I mean, we're probably just shy of an hour into this episode. Or you can sit and listen to one or a few more minutes because I have some topics that I'd like to, discuss with Asif. So if you decide to leave right now, go ahead. But you're going to miss a conversation around a few of the things that are relevant in this news world today that I just wanted to get Asif's take on it, simply because these are huge stories that are just breaking locally, and he doesn't know what we're about to talk about. But it has it has something to do with Snapchat and with Instagram, and there's a little turmoil. So I'll go into it in a little second. But if you happen to leave right now, go ahead. Thank you for listening.
I thought we were going to talk about Rob Ford.
No. I think the world has already talked about Rob Ford, and I'm done with that guy. But we could talk about it if you want. We could keep going. But if you decide to listen, if you decide to leave, hey, listen, thank you for listening to our 156th episode. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week. But if you decide to stay, hey, listen, I got some questions. So there's these rumors around there. Obviously, they've been substantiated that Snapchat was offered $3 billion, like this, from Facebook. I mentioned it earlier on, for an acquisition. And then also, almost in the same breath, people are now panning this $1 billion acquisition of Instagram by Facebook, saying that they sold out too soon because now that they have 150 or 160 million users, they're kind of 2/3 the size of Twitter, and their valuation should be in the $15 to $20 billion range, or $5 to $15 billion range, sorry, so that they sold 18 months ago for $1 billion. Now, this is, I don't know how to look at these things. These are huge numbers, but we know that Snapchat turned away $3 billion from Facebook, and now Google's in the conversation with it to acquire it. I always say this, like $3 billion. Like, what's your feeling of this? Get out while you can for Snapchat, or do you think that they're worth more than that? What's their real value?
I mean, unfortunately, I think the unlike the Groupon debacle, the $6 billion failure to take that deal. Actually, despite the fact that I think all these valuations are ridiculous, all of them, I think they're, given where these valuations are going, I think Snapchat's worth more. I think this is the good move for them is to hold off a little bit. I think they can get a bit more around this thing, and Facebook made that offer because, as we alluded to already, I mean, Facebook's not stupid. I mean, they're tracking, where all their users that they're losing, where they're going, and they know they're going to Snapchat, right? So this is more about just stemming the tide right now, and trying to protect their own their own base, because it's going to Snapchat.
It is, yeah.
And the Snapchat guys are sitting there going, no, I mean, we're doing fine over here, thank you guys. We're growing like crazy, and we think we can do better than the 3 billion, and I think they can too.
What about, so do you think we're starting to see a few brands getting into this from a real-time perspective of using Snapchat to actually go out and get customers, bring customers in, create conversations, short-term, obviously, conversations with customers. Do you think that is in its future? And can they hold off? Because they have to make money somehow and prove their value. And maybe Facebook would be looking at that. But how long can these guys hold out as a pure, anonymous conversation starter among tweens?
Well, you know what I think will happen. And again, I'm no crystal ball over here, but I actually think a more interesting play is to see the combination of a Snapchat and a WeChat,
yeah,
or a WhatsApp.
Yeah.
I think we might, if we saw some consolidation in that space between two of those players. All of a sudden, the numbers are ridiculous. It's bigger than Facebook. It's bigger than Twitter.
Yeah.
If you combine, like, say, a WhatsApp with a Snapchat, right? Then all of a sudden,
it's formidable.
Think about it the other way, though. Think about it like if you have that volume of user base and traffic, maybe one of those guys can actually turn around and buy Facebook.
Well, stranger things have happened. I mean, look at MySpace. Foursquare. Oh.
Could be an interesting one, right? Because I just think the volume is there. I mean, like these things are not slowing down by any means in terms of size. I mean, the new BBM's not had an initial nice lift, but it's not going to go anywhere.
No. So
right?
stop sending requests, please.
It can't compete with a Snapchat and a WhatsApp. It's just not happening.
Right? It could have a year and a half ago.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
But again,
absolutely. It's just too little, too late.
They missed their opportunity. But the other story that broke, and that's interesting. Like, so they're holding out, and I think that you're going to get into this bidding war where it's between Google and Facebook for Snapchat.
Right. And Facebook tried to. I mean, they built. I think they had a thing called Poke or something.
Yeah.
Which was their version of Snapchat, and that went nowhere.
Yeah.
Right. Because that user base doesn't want to be there.
No, it's true.
And the reality is it's not even a good move. For if Facebook had done that acquisition, just like when they did the Instagram acquisition, you will have a user base who comes from Snapchat who's up in arms that says we don't want to be part of Facebook.
Right. And that's what happened with Instagram
and Koala.
Koala. Yeah. Disappeared. But with Instagram, it's interesting because now there's backlash that they're talking about, saying that that system sold out too soon at $1 billion, and nobody can tell you that. 18 months ago, you negotiate $1 billion deal, and you're the king. You're heralded as a champion. You've got 30 million users at that time, 18 months ago, and you sell for $1 billion without actually generating an ounce or a cent of revenue, and then. So flash forward 18 months, and now there's criticism that he sold out for $1 billion, and all these VCs and pundits are going around saying, well, he could have held out for 5 to 15 now, because they've actually generated, now they're up to 160, 170 million users. And I think that's, this argument is a false argument, in my opinion, simply because the reason that they're at that number of users is because they have the marketing clout of Facebook. They have the ability to not take any more money because they are now part of Facebook. They can leverage the Facebook platform. And the fact that Facebook is pushing it out to 1.2 billion users, they're bound to convert a number of those into this. Then they also launched on Android right around that same time. So, maybe they could have held out for an extra billion. Who knows? But you take at that instance, He had to take the money. And the idea that they're criticizing him because of the success that he's had over the last 18 months as a result of being acquired by Facebook and the lift that mobile's having, I think is short-sighted. Take the billion and run for him.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. The reality is though is that deal that he did, at $1 billion is the one that's setting the valuations for
everybody.
Snapchat and for these other guys right now.
Yeah.
So in some respects, he's the guy that's created that benchmark, right? That everybody else is measuring against. So I think it's silly to criticize it. I think it
happened. He took his money.
It happened. It was the right move at the time.
But that they were talking about one of their VCs was disappointed. Think about this, that they took the $1 billion deal. This came out recently that they're disappointed in that. And I think that, who knows? The monetization of Instagram is still up for grabs. Ads are starting to roll in, and whether the people are going to accept them or not, and whether it's going to ruin the experience of it or not. And there's so many competing products out there. But for a VC to say, I'm disappointed that you took the $1 billion, come on. It's the arrogance of the venture capital community, specifically, a few of these guys. But it's so interesting to see this difference of a deal 18 months later. No to $3 billion. So Groupon, idiots, right? Total idiots. Total disaster. Maybe they can rebuild, but come on. Groupon, take $6 billion. You should have taken it. Same thing with Instagram, $1 billion. You take that deal any day. You negotiate it up from 500 million to $1 billion. You take the deal. But now we're talking about something like Snapchat being valued at 3 to 5 billion, maybe, and even more. As these two competing companies are bidding against it. It's an interesting play, and they all are so relevant to the location-based marketing world. Yes. Because at some point, this will be our primary way of communicating through something like Snapchat or sharing experiences through something like Instagram. It's just a tale of two different companies, but both just so valuable to the ecosystem. So that's why I wanted to get this out, and I don't know any other way to do this other than a little addendum to our show. So thanks, Asif, for humoring me.
Hey, no worries.
All right, that is the official end of this
3
episode.
3 years in the book.
Yes, 3 years in the book. We'll start our 4th year next week, so please stick around. We will be here for episode number 157. 1 week from now. Please come back. Thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for participating through this, our 3rd year, and we hope to do this forever. Well, until you get bored. Until we get bored, and that's never going to happen. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week on This Week in Location-Based Marketing. Asif, thanks, buddy.
Cheers.